We sent a movie out there yesterday. Is it wrong? What else? All right. I think first, yeah. I think if you
Hi, good morning. We're about a minute out and we'll get started. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I did you could get the other entries.
I might be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll begin with Superintendent Tom Horne.
Thank you all for coming. I have with me Adam Brooks, a parent of a Desert Mountain student, Deb Rochford, who alerted us to this issue. They'll both speak briefly after I do, and then we'll take questions. And Karen Werner is with us, who serves on the Scottsdale School Board. She's not planning to speak, but she's here to show her support. Last week at an Arizona high school, a large number of students, I think we have a picture of it, attended a lunchtime presentation sponsored by UNICEF and Amnesty International, which was profoundly anti-Semitic in nature, anti-Semitic in particular and anti-American in general. Jewish students reported feeling unsafe because of the anti-Semitism among other students generated by these presentations. It's not my purpose to criticize the school, but to alert other schools. And yesterday I sent an email to all the superintendents that they should avoid UNICEF and Amnesty International in their schools. I have no power to require it, but that's the advice I'm giving them. This morning I got an email from someone who said the third grade student in Paradise Valley was insulted by another student for being Jewish, sort of thing that never happened before. Those of you who know me know that my style is to talk about issues, not about myself, but my executive team is insisting that I tell you about my personal interest in this. And during the 1930s, my parents were Polish Jewish people living in Warsaw. My father didn't have a college education, very few people did at the time, but he loved to read history, and that made him a good interpreter of current events. And so he predicted that the Nazis would invade Poland. He predicted they would invade in September 38. They actually invaded in September 39. So he got the month right, but he was off by a year. But he knew they would invade in September because generally invasions occur after the harvest is in. He went around telling everybody they should leave, all the Jewish people, that they should leave, and no one wanted to listen to him. It's hard to leave your culture and your language and so on. Even my mother didn't want to leave. My older sister was already born in Poland, so she had a young daughter. But in those days, husbands had more influence over their wives than they do now, and he made her leave. They couldn't get into the United States legally, so they went to Canada, where I was born, and then they came to the United States when they could do so legally 13 years later, when I was 4 years old. And so I became a citizen as a result of my parents becoming citizens. I've been a big advocate of teaching our students history because my immediate family survived because of my father's knowledge of history and ability to interpret current events. And I believe that the next generation's survival depends on their knowledge of history and ability to interpret current events. All of my extended family were killed in the Holocaust. So I grew up with just my parents and my sister, no grandparents, no nieces or nephews, no uncles or aunts. They were all killed. So when I see signs of anti-Semitism developing in the United States, you can imagine it's something that affects me personally. I have distributed, and I think you all have copies of the literature that was used from UNICEF and Amnesty International. In my letter to the superintendents of the schools, I've enclosed that literature, and I've pointed out a few things from there. The rest they could see, and the rest you can see. I'll mention to you the ones that I brought to their attention. The first page of the Amnesty International document refers to apartheid, suggesting that Israel is an apartheid state. Actually, Arabs serve as members of the Knesset, the Israeli legislature, and as judges in Israel. No Arab country has shown that level of tolerance. The second page suggested that when Holocaust survivors purchased land in Palestine, this was done illegally. This is not true. It also targets the United States, so we're the target also as Americans, stating, with support from the USA, Israel took control of Palestine and subjected its people to unfair laws and human rights violations. When our enemies chant death to Israel, they also chant death to America. The same page also states that Palestinians have been subject to killings, torture, rape, abuse, and more for over 75 years. This is a blood libel of the type that was used during the Middle Ages to get people to go out and kill Jewish people at random. In none of this propaganda is there any reference to what happened on October 7th, not a single reference. All these kids attended a session with libels against Israel and Jewish people, not one word about October 7th. The fact that 1,400 innocent people, civilians, were murdered does not begin to describe the horror of what happened on October 7th. They went to house in neighborhoods, machine gunning whole families, killing fathers in front of their children, children in front of their fathers. And when they couldn't get into the room where people were hiding, they would set the house on fire so people would either burn to death or they would kill them as they came out. That was a Nazi technique that these people have adopted. The actions of Hamas are a repetition of what happened during World War II. Yet the materials that are presented by UNICEF and Amnesty International and used to propagandize our kids in the schools make no mention of it at all. So all the kids, impressionable kids, know are these libels against the Jewish people. Their own videos, Hamas's own videos that they distributed, because they were apparently proud of it, show women with their hands tied behind their backs, march through the streets, subject to the violence of angry mobs. And CNN noticed that there was blood on their pants, indicating they'd been raped. Marchers for Hamas chant, "From the river to the sea." All Israel is between the river and the sea. They are not interested in a two-state solution, which Israel has tried to negotiate several times, but to destroy all the Jewish people who live in Israel, a second Holocaust. We all belong to a minority group of one kind or another. If Jewish people can be targeted by UNICEF and Amnesty International, who's next? And as I mentioned, they also attack the United States. On the next page of the materials that I refer to is another blood libel stating falsely that the Israeli army has also physically and emotionally abused many kids. I don't make the letter too long, and I don't want to make this talk too long. There's lots more of this, both from Amnesty International and from UNICEF. But I think you've all been given copies of it so you can see what's there. UNICEF is under the thumb of the United Nations, which has become dominated by authoritarian countries. Believe it or not, Iran was just elected the head of human rights for the UN. Amnesty International used to be an excellent organization, but many years ago it was taken over by the hard left, and now it's distributing anti-Semitic propaganda. Giving aid and comfort to terrorists is contrary to U.S. law. I have no authority to tell the schools what to do on this, but I advise them to keep Amnesty International and UNICEF out of their literature and the clubs out of their schools, off of their campuses. They generate anti-Semitism among impressionable young people, just as happened at an Arizona school. And as a result of that, once they propagandize the kids, this we got today, they circulated on social media that they should shut down the school to show support for Palestine. So this ideology triumphs over education. The Germans who did the Holocaust did not have any different DNA than we do. This can happen anywhere. And they started by propagandizing young people who became the most ardent Nazis because impressionable young minds had absorbed what they were said. So I wanted to let you know about what I've sent to the schools. I hope they'll keep UNICEF and Amnesty International out of the schools. And I'm hoping the schools will teach students that every individual is deserving of respect and consideration, and they should treat each other as individuals without regard to their religion, sexuality, or anything else. They need to learn to treat each other as individuals. And what happened, and which I hope we can prevent happening again, was the opposite of that, in that it generated the kind of anti-Semitism that started in Germany. So I think Adam Brooks has a few words to say. Adam.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few words. When anti-Israel messages and outright lies are given a space on our school campuses, it allows terrorist groups to deflect attention from the heinous acts that they performed just over a month ago and perpetuates Jew hatred. We cannot confound the expression of safe spaces with enabling a space that fosters misinformation, hatred, and political agendas. When a parent sends their child to a public school, there's an assumption that adult supervision and direction will foster thoughtful debate and conversation, not an open forum to distribute propaganda, lies, and anti-Semitism. This is not about punishing a group of kids. This is not a witch hunt against the administration. It's most definitely not an attempt at limiting free speech. But there's a fine line between free speech and hate speech. And the acts that took place at Desert Mountain High School crossed that line and should never be allowed to happen on that or any other campus again. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb Rochford will say a few words. Deb is the one who brought this problem to our attention.
Hi, I'm Deb Rochford with Jewish National Fund. Thank you for being here. It's a shame that we have to be here this morning. And it's a shame that young people who do not have the facts, who do not have the truth, are put in a situation in a required club meeting and have to sit and listen to information which is false. That is the problem. We as parents, and I'm a parent and I'm a grandparent, have to understand what is going on in our schools. We have to note what these clubs are, what information is being propagated and circulated, and we have to stop it. And I appreciate it, you getting this message out. We have to tell the truth. And there's nothing wrong with debate. If that club would have had accurate information and would have had two views in the room where they could speak about the situation, it would have been terrific because kids would have learned something and they would have learned correct information. But instead they went home learning lies. And I feel sorry for these kids. I have to tell you, I do. I feel really sorry for them. They're pawns. They're being treated like pawns. And when they're being told to go to a rally, if they're unafraid, they don't even know what they're going to a rally for. That's how the information is so inaccurate. And we should feel sorry for them. And we should stop it. Thank you.
Now, happy to take any questions that you might have. Yes.
Yes, it's to you, ma'am, if you don't mind.
Yes, yes, sir.
Is there an appropriate way, you kind of touched on it there in the end here. Is there an appropriate way for students to talk about the other side? That Palestinian children are caught in the middle of this war. Is there an appropriate way to discuss that on school campuses, on high school campuses, that for the Jewish students that attend that school doesn't have them walk away fearing for their own safety?
I think it's a great thing to bring in somebody from the community that's well-versed in the situation to have that discussion with students and have someone that's well-versed in on the other side. That's what debate is. We're seeing what's going on college campuses right now. The reason why these kids go to college and they're becoming radicalized is because what they're learning early on. So when they get to the universities, they don't even know what they're railing for either. So we need to do that. And it can happen. It's an open forum. It's allowing debate from experts to come in. And it should be, that is a great thing. That is a great thing.
One follow-up, has the school or the district replied? I mean, these clubs usually have adult supervision, a teacher that oversees the club.
Yeah,
Has there been any response as to what that adult supervision was as it related to this incident?
yeah, we're in touch with them. And I've asked to clarify some facts, and they agreed to get me some of the facts I've asked about. But it's not my purpose here to criticize the school. My purpose is to warn other schools to avoid the situation.
Yeah, but part of it though, isn't it the fact that you have a teacher supposedly who is who is assigned to a club and should be the person who offers the kind of guidance about the fact, well, wait a second, you're missing, nothing's being said about what happened on October 7th. Nothing's being said about this, or, that you need to include this as part of your debate and it sounds like there was none of that in this case. Is that true?
Well, I've asked for more information about the teacher that did this, and as soon as I get it, I can let you know
All right.
the answer I get. But I feel uncomfortable commenting on it before I have all the information. What I do have is the literature and the desire to see to it that it doesn't happen again. I just want to make also one comment. Every decent human being feels sympathy for Palestinian kids that are caught in the middle. I want to point out that Israel, by social media and by pamphlets, told people where it was going to attack, which is a disadvantage to their army, so that they could get out of the way. And Hamas stopped them from getting out of the way in order to hold them as human shields. So I think that's an important point to make.
Superintendent.
Yes.
Superintendent, I think you can address something as well.
Go ahead.
really quickly.
So to address your question, what I believe happened was that the material that you see here was sent out previously before the meeting took place, that there was an attempt to by some students to stop the meeting from taking place. And instead, they decided to allow the meeting to go, student run, but adult supervised. They revised the presentation, but the presentation that was actually shown in the club meeting was just as bad, if not worse. So I do think that there was adult review, but the review was not accurate or thorough or detailed enough to prevent misinformation and propaganda from being shared.
Thanks. And Mr. Horne, keep speed questions. Are you satisfied? I know you said you're not here to criticize the school or the district. Are you satisfied with the way the school has responded to any?
I haven't. I've asked the superintendent for some information. He told me he was researching it and would get it to me. And when I get the information, I'll let you guys
Yeah,
know.
they've been communicating with parents and sent some letters out and whatnot. Are you satisfied with that?
I'm sorry, the letter.
I think they sent some letters or some emails.
Yes, they did, and the
you
letters are,
satisfied with the response?
the letters they sent are good. I agree with the letters that were sent.
And you also
But,
mentioned,
how this happened, I don't know enough details yet to comment on how it happened.
yeah, you also mentioned this was a large group.
Yes, it was a large group.
So how big is the UNICEF school student group? How many?
I don't have any numbers. Do you have any
So-
numbers? I know that the meeting was packed.
So my understanding, again, I wasn't there, and frankly, my son that attends the high school was not there. So please take that for what it's worth. But from what I understand, there was about 60 students that were there. Your comment about the letters that have gone out, I would push back on that. and say that I don't think that the response has been satisfactory. I don't think parents feel that it has been satisfactory. And if anything, it's created more of an environment for further protests, like the one we're seeing potentially taking place tomorrow, which I hope does not take place.
And then
I just want to make clear, my target is Amnesty International and UNICEF, which I think are despicable for what they put out. That's my target. And I want to urge all schools to keep them off of their schools.
And I just wanted to be real clear on one point. It sounds like you're not taking any sort of action against the school.
No, I'm not taking
all.
action at all. I'm just sending out advice. Yes.
And just to clarify, is the advice against UNICEF and Amnesty International specifically regarding information that they have around the situation, or just more broadly?
Well, I think we can draw some conclusions from this incident that they should be broadly kept off of our campuses. They're despicable people.
Excuse me, what is the actual name of the club?
Until I get more information, I'll give it out, but I don't want to do it right now until I know
Do you
exactly.
know if it's related to UNICEF?
Oh, the name of the club?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. There's a UNICEF club and there's a Amnesty International club, and they had a joint meeting, and they said this meeting was required of all members of the club. That I do know.
So are you asking for both of those clubs to be disbanded?
I am. I have no authority to make it happen, but I'm advising that they be disbanded.
And have you had response from the district about that request?
No, the letter just went out yesterday. I sent a letter out to all. I'm not just talking about this district or this school. The letter went to every superintendent of schools in the state.
Yeah, and you haven't heard back from any
No, I haven't heard
superintendents
that.
yet?
It just went out yesterday.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, so my question, I believe your name was Adam, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so as a parent at this school, I know Superintendent Horne just mentioned he would like to see the clubs disbanded despite there being no authority on the state level for that. As a parent, what specifically would you like to see done in terms of next steps for this?
That's a really good question. This is a really complex issue, and I recognize that. I believe that there needs to be some accountability for the teacher advisor for not reviewing the material that's being disseminated. I think, frankly, there probably should be some accountability for the principal for, again, fostering this kind of environment on our school campuses. And I think that if there's a protest that happens like this on school campus tomorrow, I think the students should be reprimanded in some way. Again, this is not about punishing kids. This is not about, I don't think any of the parents are after a witch hunt here for anybody's head to roll or anything along those lines, but I do think there should be some consequences.
But how do you define accountability in terms of teacher advisors and the principal?
Again, this is not my area of expertise, and I would leave it up to people that have the authority and direction and expertise to answer those kinds of questions. I would just leave it more broadly to say there probably needs to be some accountability.
I just want to make clear, we don't yet know whether the principal's at fault, so I don't want to see this as a event to criticize the principal. Once we know, we might, but at this point, we don't know that. But I have communicated with the people in authority who can put a stop to this kind of thing. And now the ball's in their court to do that. Anybody else? If not, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, he just wanted to-
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll choose for a few.
If you don't mind, can I bring Sarah?
Sure.
She would be a great person to answer that.
Thank you.
Sarah Schneider is,
Hi, Tom Scanlon with the Western Project.
she has a student at Desert Mountain.
Ed, are these yours?
That, yes, what was the environment like at school prior to the meeting?
Yeah, those are mine. Thank you.
And are you a Jewish name?
I can just tell you a little bit